Yamales! Welcome to the Naked Mennonite, a place for the black sheep from any flock. My name is Stephen Harder. A little while ago, I heard about this as-of-yet unmet challenge where you take the Easter morning narratives from the different accounts in the Bible and you stitch them together into a single cohesive narrative. And I thought that with the aforementioned holiday coming up, it might be fun to try it out myself. So this is going to sort of be a follow-up to my video about the nativity story not making any sense. So come along. Let's open our Bibles to the resurrection story. So here's a bit of an overview on how exactly I approached this challenge. First off, I went through each of the Easter morning stories recorded in the Gospels and jotted down what happened verse by verse. I know Paul mentions the resurrection in 1 Corinthians, but screw that guy. He wasn't there. I don't care what he thinks happened, although it is kind of funny that his words have been recorded before the Gospels, so it's almost as if his version would have been closest to the truth. Allegedly. So now that I've got these point form ideas of the stories, I lined up the parts of the stories that easily jived across various accounts. And I know that the Gospels get a lot of flack for not being perfect mirror images of each other. Like, if these are infallible records of historic events, then how can they possibly not match each other exactly? But I also know that a lot of Christians they prefer it this way because if the stories did match up perfectly, that would take away from the authenticity and make the stories seem doctored. Allegedly. I'm sure if the stories did line up perfectly, then that would just point to how miraculous God is. In any case, if the story points didn't outright contradict each other, I mark them down as lining up. Details be damned. So, once the easy stuff was lined up, then I had to dig into the harder stuff. And let me tell you, I tried my hardest to work around these details to make them not contradictions. And not because I want to prove the Bible isn't wrong, but I just took it as a creative challenge. I am a creative guy, and how can I possibly find a way to make it all work? And so we know that the book of John was written about 70 years or so after the events that it records. And boy, does it show. Oh, that's like me trying to write an accurate account of something that happened in the 50s. It's a stretch. But this dude is just off in left field telling his own story, you know? Like the three synoptic gospels more or less follow a common thread, but not John. He is, off doing his own little side quest, which it felt like he was telling a whole different story that no one else was even thinking about, which didn't make my job any easier. So here is the story that I was able to come up with. And when there are branching details that I just can't reconcile, I'll let you know. So sometime before sunrise, an angel of the Lord came down, causing a violent earthquake, as they are wont to do. And an earthquake which no one besides Matthew noticed, or at least found remarkable, I guess. So this angel, he rolled away the stone that was in front of the tomb, and the guards who were posted there shook and fainted. And these guards don't seem to be there when the women arrive next, so I assume that at some point they got up and left after a while. I'm not clear. I guess maybe they fainted into bushes where the women didn't see them. No, they aren't mentioned again, so something happened to them. Although, as we'll find out, there are a lot of details that get missed by the other authors, so maybe it just wasn't noteworthy. Papyrus was expensive back in the day, right? So we know the next part of the story happens first thing in the day. Mark says that the women went down to the tomb just after sunrise. Luke says the women went down to the tomb very early in the morning. But John has to go in there and mess things up by saying Mary Magdalene went to the tomb while it was still dark. John, why are you doing this to me, John? Just keep it simple. Keep it simple. I don't know where you live, but when there's a blazing ball of light visible, it is no longer dark out. Here, at least. Heck, it starts to get light before the sun even rises. So I thought, what if I split off this part of the story from the other Easter accounts? Maybe Mary Magdalene had gone down to the tomb before all the others, while it was still dark. That way I can have both stories line up. Mary Magdalene went down before sunrise. All the other women went down after sunrise. And I'm not even suggesting anything like related to necrophilia. Not in the slightest. She just went down to the tomb while it was still dark for her own personal reasons. But you want to know the one character besides Jesus who is consistently mentioned throughout all of these stories? It's Mary Magdalene. There are just too many details about where she was and what she was doing. I couldn't have her go down pre-dawn in John's story, then double back and return with all the other women in the synoptic gospels post-dawn. I could not do it. This was the first detail that I just could not reconcile. I couldn't massage this one in. Maybe I'm not as creative as I think. I don't know. So the women did go down to the tomb. We're not sure when. And they include, but are not limited to, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. Those are the people that are named. No two accounts list the same women, but that doesn't bother me because the lists are so vague. Who cares? It could be anybody, right? Why they went to the tomb also isn't clear. In one account, it says that it's to spice the body. Elsewhere, it says that the body was already spiced and they were just going there to look at the tomb, as you're wont to do, I guess. But regardless, they went, they saw that the stone was rolled away. Now here I had to really up my creative thinking game to incorporate all the little things that John talks about that no one else mentions. So for the moment, we're gonna say that Mary Magdalene saw that the stone was rolled away. Whether it was still dark or not, doesn't matter. She saw that the stone was rolled away and she just assumed that the tomb was empty. So she jumps up, runs off to tell Peter and the disciple Jesus loved, which we just call John. It's never blatantly said that this was John, but sure, we'll call him John. And she is going to tell them, pay attention here, that someone has taken the body. Meanwhile, all the other women are investigating the tomb itself, and what they saw is a hodgepodge at best. Mark says that the women saw a young man dressed in white sitting in the tomb. Luke says no one was in the tomb, and then suddenly, bamf, two men in white are standing beside them. Matthew is kinda goosey. You know how I started the story by saying an angel came down, caused an earthquake, and rolled away the stone? Well, the way the story is written, it kind of sounds like that happened while the women were standing there. Oh, but that messes up so many other things. So I chose to see it kind of as like a flashback. I believe the way it's worded is that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to the tomb. There was a violent earthquake. An angel came down from heaven, rolled away the stone. The guards fainted. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid." But I'm choosing to see that as these women came down to the tomb. There was this violent earthquake, and an angel of the Lord had come down from heaven and rolled away the stone, and the guards were afraid, and they shook and became like dead men. And then flipping back to present day, this is the angel that said to the women, it's a stretch, I know, but that's the name of the game here. So Matthew's account says that the angel rolled away the stone, then popped a squat on the stone. And this is the only time when there's any mention of an angel outside of the tomb. So then I had to figure out, why were there women going into the tomb to see an angel, but also to not see an angel? So I'm going to pretend that this is the young man who is sitting inside the tomb that Mark was talking about, right? The both of them are sitting. There's a stone involved. Maybe it's not a big tomb. Maybe you could be in the tomb and outside of the tomb. I don't know. I'm gonna blur them together to say it's one detail. Sure. But either way, I cannot find a way to piece the rest of it together. The best I can do is that one woman was observant, and she saw a dude dressed in sparkling white sitting in this tiny tomb, and the other woman was less observant, and she didn't notice the dude until he got up and stood beside them. But even then, that doesn't explain where the second guy came from. Can't do it. Second strike. After that, the angels tell the women to go tell the disciples that Jesus is going ahead of them into Galilee. The speech is different each time, but that's the gist, right? And remember that, because it's going to come back into the story later. Jesus will meet you in Galilee. So now we need to go back and pick up John's B plot, and then we stumble all over this third inconsistency. In John's version, Mary had left before the angel appeared. She went down to the tomb, saw that it was empty, and she's like, gotta go tell the men. Bump, 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 bump. So she trucks out of there. So she is going, and she's finding Peter and John, and told them that the body was missing from the tomb. That's all the information she had. She saw that it was an empty tomb. Go and tell Peter and John. So those two bros book it down to the tomb, arriving, presumably, after the women have left, because the angels told them to go tell the disciples. So the women get out of there. Peter and John come down. Peter gets there first, hangs out outside of the tomb. Then moments later, John arrives, goes into the tomb, and then leaves. It's super straightforward. Except in Luke's version of the multiverse, 95% of that didn't happen. In Luke's version, Mary doesn't show up on her own. All of the women, including Mary Magdalene, arrive at the same time to tell the disciples that Jesus has risen. And that is why Peter hoofs it down to the tomb. No mention of John. So what is it? Did Mary tell Peter and John that the body was missing, and that's why they ran down to the tomb? Or did all of the women tell the disciples that Jesus was risen, and that's why Peter ran down to the tomb? You can have it one way or the other, but you can't have it both ways. And when all of these other little inconsistencies escape me, that's the one that always sticks out to me. What exactly did Mary tell the disciples about when she showed up? Missing or risen? Which one? So after that, Mary Magdalene goes back to the tomb and is all sad, because remember, in this version of the multi-gospel verse, she's sad that the body is missing. So she bends over, looks in the tomb, and she sees two angels just sitting in there, dressed in white, which is crazy because Peter and John were just looking in the tomb and they didn't see anything. So where were these mofos a couple minutes ago? I don't know. Maybe they're like thestrals, except that only women can see them. But then things get even zanier. First, Jesus appears to Mary M. and chats with her. And this is detailed in John, but also corroborated by Mark, of all people. We then cut back to the other women who are on their way to tell the disciples that angels told them that Jesus has risen and will meet them in Galilee. That's their message. Go to the disciples, tell them that Jesus will meet them in Galilee. Off you go. And while they're on their way, Jesus meets them on the road and tells them to go tell the disciples that he has risen and will meet them in Galilee. So I guess he didn't know that the angels were telling them, or why? What's with the doubling up of the messaging here? Maybe there was a sale at Bulk Barn and they were going to get distracted, and Jesus had to be like, whoa, no. Remember, the disciples, go. Just go tell them yourself. Like, what are you so busy with? Never mind. There's 500 zombies wandering around Jerusalem. Maybe Jesus has his hands full dealing with those guys, and he doesn't have time to appear to the disciples individually. Maybe. But clearly, when the women tell the disciples will believe them. Psych, they have a hard time believing. Meanwhile, separate from all of that, 2 followers of Jesus have heard the buzz, and they are hiking out from Jerusalem to the town of Emmaus, which apparently is about a 4-hour walk, according to Google Maps, if you're walking along beautifully paved roads. Jesus joins them, chats with them, goes home with them, breaks bread with them, disappears, and the followers immediately get up, head back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples. This story is mentioned in both Mark and Luke. Then Jesus appears to his disciples, finally, or at least the 11 or however many are left. They were they were, high on the list, but they weren't top of the list. But I need to dig into where he appeared to them. Because remember, the message was, go to Galilee, because that is where Jesus will meet you. And it's unclear if that's what happened next. Matthew says they go to Galilee and Jesus appears to them there. Sweet. Easy. Check. But our buddy John, oh no, he has to do things his way yet again. On the evening of the first day of the week, getting real specific, the disciples were hiding, afraid of the Jewish leaders. So clearly, still in Jerusalem. They didn't make the 100-mile journey to Galilee in one day and then just head out. Jesus appeared to them in Jerusalem. Mark, meanwhile, says that Jesus appeared to them later. Like, real vague, but sure, you can serve that parchment. Later. Luke, meanwhile, pairs Jesus' appearance with the Emmaus experience. The 2 followers walked to Emmaus for 4 hours, walked back to Jerusalem for another 4 hours, maybe 4.5, found the disciples still in Jerusalem, tell them about seeing Jesus. Then, while they were still talking about this, Jesus appears to them. Like, does that mean that same day, while still in Jerusalem, Jesus appeared to them? Because that's how it sounds to me, but I don't know. I can be generous. I can pretend that the disciples were still talking about all this for weeks. And while they were still talking about it, weeks later, Jesus appeared to them while they were in Galilee. Sure. So, of the stories of Jesus appearing to his disciples, clearly one is in Galilee. Thank you very much, Matthew. We know how you love to twist details to fit your agenda. 2 really want you to think that they're taking place in Jerusalem, and 1 is just super vague. And I wouldn't be quibbling about this except for the whole theme of the angel's messages was go to Galilee to meet up with Jesus. So if he was just going to meet them in Jerusalem anyway, why bother with the angels at all? So that's the best I could do. I don't think it's necessary to make the stories fit together because I think they're just written down versions of just that, stories. No ultimate capital T truth involved. But for those who are inclined to view the Bible as literal, recorded truth, these stories are mixed up in when they took place. They are mixed up in what or who the women saw when they went into the tomb. They are mixed up on if John and Peter both ran down to the tomb and why. And they are mixed up on if J-Dog met the disciples in Galilee like he said, or if he met them in Jerusalem first. And to be honest, I was expecting it to be a lot worse than this. A lot of the contradictions and inconsistencies, though, I could give the benefit of the doubt and just kind of find a way to make it work. For a lot of them. But there were a few that, no matter how hard I tried, I just could not make them fit. So thank you so much for taking the time to dig into these stories with me. Are there any other weird things in the Bible you'd like me to dive into? Let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, this is Stephen Harder reminding you that underneath our clothes, we are all naked. I'll see you next time.